IDF Chief of Staff General Hersey, Lieutenant General Hersey Halevi, hailed the military's ongoing operation at Shifa Hospital during a visit to there on Friday. Did you hear about that? Have you heard about this guy?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, he
He's
said
the
almost 2
spokesperson for the
weeks.
IDF.
Okay, he's talking about the operation specifically on Shifa Hospital. He says
Yeah.
almost 2 weeks, very, very successful. And this is an operation to plan it in a war, to carry out in a war, to execute it correctly in a war is very, very complex. So
Yeah.
what can you tell me about the Shifa Hospital?
Okay, so I can tell you about the Shifa Hospital. When we went in the beginning of the war, we were in the northern part of Gaza. So Shifa is just in the northern strip of the Gaza Strip in Gaza City. And it's a hospital that literally housed the prisoners, the Israeli prisoners, the hostages that were taken, and the staff there, and everybody was more or less involved, not just the terrorists. They were there's also underground, like part of the underground tunnel system in Shifa Hospital itself, where they would hide the hostages in like a underground prison, basically. I mean, I don't know how to explain it really, but these underground facilities. And short, we came there, we uncovered the hostage reality that they were being held there. We uncovered that the medical hospital systems in Gaza, United Nations, all, everybody's involved with the terrorist activity, basically. Nobody really is not involved, unfortunately. And for those who are not involved actively, they're obviously and or not supportive, they're not going to voice their opinion, because that means they're going to be dragged down the streets on the back of a motorbike, having their brains basically. You get the idea, right? I won't get into more gruesome detail, but people need to understand the reason why people in Gaza, Gazans, okay, are not speaking up against Hamas and terrorism, and why it seems to be that literally the whole of the Gaza public, not just the terrorists, are all involved with terrorism, is because of that very reality that you either join the team and get some benefits, food benefits, paychecks, what have you, and or you're going to have very grim consequences for not supporting, the main terrorist organization. What I'd like to refer to is what Lord Andrew Roberts, who is a British historian, referred to concerning the Gaza operations. He says, even if we took Hamas's figures, which at the time, this was a few weeks ago, where they mentioned it was 27,500 people killed in Gaza by the IDF. So if we take even their inflated numbers, he says that less than 2-to-1 is an astonishing low ratio for modern urban warfare, where the terrorists routinely use human shields. It's a testament to the professionalism, ethics, and values of the IDF. That's a direct quote from a lord in England at the parliament in England, making his parliament aware of, hey, listen, as a guy who studies war in war history, what the IDF is doing is astonishing. And I can weigh in as being on the battlefield and say that's exactly it. I mean, being there and seeing how we're able to navigate through some of the most complex terrain, urban jungle that Gaza can be in some places, and that's not all an urban jungle. Okay, there's lots of open spaces as well. By the way, contrary to what a lot of people think, that it's the most congested place in the world. That's actually not true, but it's very congested in some parts. And so the terrorists use that to their benefit. They use human shields to their benefit. They use United Nations facilities. They use hospitals. They use mosques. They use everything in their ability to try to demonize the IDF. That no matter what we do, if we react, we look bad. If we don't react, then we're shown weak. So it's a constant, cat and mouse kind of reality, and it's very complex. But based on, again, external opinion of people that study war, for them to testify about our operations in favor of what we're doing, not in favor of what we're doing, but in speaking favorably of how we've been operating, is a testament to how capable we've been in this war.
Now, I have a question because I was in the old city today and I was talking to a Palestinian Christian, and he
Mm,
was showing me messages from the Palestinian Christians that are in Gaza, hiding in their church there, and he was saying
yeah.
these people, they can't leave. If they try to leave, they'll get killed. They don't have any food. What do you know anything about the Palestinian Christians, the churches in northern Gaza? You heard anything about that?
Actually, no, I have not. So I don't have any direct information about the minorities in Gaza. So right, the smaller
Hmm.
minorities. What I can tell you is that we have created a humanitarian corridor from the north all the way down to Rafah, okay, to the southern strip, where we have a tent city and we have food and everything that is needed for the Gazans to survive very well,
Hmm.
very much so to the point where they're actually mocking the humanitarian aid. They're saying this is crappy food, this I don't like, this I don't want. Starving people don't do that. Starving people aren't picky about food that they get,
Hmm.
and I think we both have had a little bit of experience of what it's like to go with not eating or at least not eating properly, and any piece of morsel of anything you're going to shove that right down real quick, right? So
Hmm.
to say that they're starving,
But you're not seeing that there.
no, not
Wow. So somebody's asking, what's the most effective Israel-focused charity that you've seen over there that people could donate to actually help people in Israel, whatever?
yeah. So there's one organization that we have worked with directly, um, and that's the Victor Marx organization, All Things Possible. They've been doing a tremendous job coming here. We've actually assisted them with ground operations as far as connecting them with whoever they need for humanitarian aid. And they send a professional team that comes here. They pay their way. They pay for a lot of expenses as far as getting people
All things
both
possible
All Things Possible
ministries.
Ministries.
Uh-huh.
Those are people I know directly, right? And that I've seen directly how they have been visiting, where displaced families have been displaced from the north and from the Gaza area communities, the Jewish communities in hotels, and
Hmm.
basically helping them as they're have been stuck in these hotels for such a long time, and just take care of basic needs and humanitarian help, and helping the children on both sides of this conflict specifically as well. So we have connected them with the Christian Arab community. We have connected them with Palestinian communities where they're able to go in, because that has been shown to be very difficult as well, because
Hmm.
the Palestinians are not very open to having nonprofit organizations come and do some actual real humanitarian work, as long as it's not funneled through Hamas or the PA, then they're not going to be very helpful. But we've found a
Hmm.
few ways where we've been able to help in that. So essentially, we're working on that together jointly through my nonprofit work and theirs together, and joining forces with that, and then using my security company for a lot of the work that we do as well, as far as contacts and whatever, that has helped tremendously. Then you have Bridges for Peace. Bridges for Peace has been doing a lot of great work as well. Great people, great organization, and have been doing a lot of similar work with humanitarian aid throughout the world, throughout this war. Um, you have Hayovel. Hayovel has been doing a lot of work as well. Less less
That's
with the
serveisrael.com, by the way.
yeah, yeah,
The website
yeah.
serveisrael.com is how you will.
Yeah. So less in hands-on humanitarian aid, I would say, more in helping with the communities that have been vulnerable in Judea and Samaria, which is part of the conflict that people are not aware of. So they've been helping a lot with other organizations, and again, a lot of collaboration, which has been really wonderful to see, to help get the first responders just simple bulletproof vests and a bulletproof helmet, that they can protect the Jewish communities from further attacks. So these
Yeah.
are just some of the things that I know directly from people that I know directly and that are helping
They're doing
in
a real
all of
good
those
job.
different areas.
Yeah,
Yes,
I've
sir.
helped Victor Marks and been up there with the Yovel guys, and I can second that. Those are both good
Yeah.
ministries to donate to if you want to help the people here. Now, people are asking in the comments, Doron, if you're a Christian or a Jew. I'll let you answer that question. I can answer it, but I'll let you answer that question. How about that?
Yeah. So I'm a Jew. I'm Jewish. I actually grew up in a Christian home, so a Christian Zionist home. So I do have a lot of understanding from the Christian world, and therefore also able to collaborate a lot with Christian organizations. And so, in any case, that's part of also the work that we do with Cry for Zion, is that we try to build bridges between the Jewish and Christian communities, and that is because of my background of being in both worlds, so to speak,
Mhm.
and seeing the importance and value that we need to come together. We need to come together on things that we can agree on, because there's so much evil out there in the world today. There's so much darkness that is trying to destroy and target in specific both the Jewish and Christian communities. And so that's part of what we're trying to do here in Israel, being on the front lines of a lot of that. Answer that correctly for
No,
folks.
okay. So let's go back to Gaza and let's talk a
Yeah,
little more about your experience there. Tell me about,
yeah,
kind of a blow by blow from the beginning, what it was like when you first went in there. You've been into Gaza many times before and have actually
yeah,
seen combat in Gaza before. So give us a little background on that and how
yeah.
that informs what you're doing now.
So I started serving in Gaza back in 2003. I believe was my first time in Gaza physically. And what I can tell you is that when the IDF was in Gaza and protecting the Jewish communities of that were all
That
spread
live in
out
there.
throughout that lived there, yeah, Gush Katif, etc.
Mhm.
We had peace, a relative peace and calm, and we were able to squelch a lot of the terrorist activity of Hamas and other terrorist organizations that were there, Islamic Jihad and Al-Aqsa brigades, etc. All these, there's plenty. Um, but what happened is that we pulled out from Gaza because of George W. Bush, who was president at the time, and pushed heavily on our prime minister, who at the time, the sitting prime minister of Israel, was Ariel Sharon. Ariel Sharon was the general in the south who actually established the communities. It was his decision, or excuse me, it was his advice to the Jewish community that was living already down in the Sinai area after the Six-Day War. So we took
Mhm.
up the whole Sinai. Jewish communities started to build towns and so on, and then we pulled them out of there. So after we pulled them out of there, he was the one that said, "Hey, let's go to the Gaza Strip. This is a good place for you to build your Jewish communities, your homes, and it will help establish and restore Jewish life to this area because people are probably not familiar, but one of the most ancient synagogues is actually in Gaza. Okay, from I believe it's either fourth or sixth century. Okay, so it's a very ancient synagogue, and Jewish life has been here before. Um, and so this was his dream. Jews, rabbis, and leaders of Jewish communities agreed with him and said, "Sure." And we built and had farms, and about 80%, I believe it was at the time, 80% of our export of grown goods like flowers and different types of fruits and vegetables came out of the Gaza Strip farming communities. So what we uprooted was 80% of our export, okay, to Europe and other countries. I mean, so it's not just communities that were uprooted, but whole farming industries were
Areas. Yeah.
destroyed, literally.
Mhm.
So we pulled out. And during that time, by the way, so like I said, it was mostly quiet. A lot of the terrorists were fighting each other, not just us at the time. So it made it more relatively quiet. There were plenty of families. I can give you an example of one, and I don't know if naming them will threaten them today, but I remember the Moassi family was known as a peaceful because they're tribes. Okay, a lot of the Arabs are tribes, contrary to what people think and see. So a lot of the Middle East is tribal, and so the Moasi gang, family tribe, were known as peaceful, who just wanted to work the fields and wanted to make a living. They weren't pushing for terrorism. Then what happened is we pulled out, like I said, we got thousands of rockets fired into Israel throughout the years. Huge devastation to kids growing up under this reality. And I was on with a special convoy from the United Nations. Excuse me, a special convoy of different leaders. One of them was from the United Nations, and the person from the United Nations was actually the one that was in charge of seeing the effects of war on children and PTS, post-traumatic stress, and so on. And this gentleman made a claim and said, what I've seen here, he says, is devastating because it's over 90% of the children have PTS, and the ramifications aren't going to be just for them, but also for their children after them, and their spouses or whoever they marry. And it's a ripple effect, is the way he explained it. And I never thought of it before. And I grew up in a conflict zone in the northern part of Israel under rocket fire. During my upbringing, I lived through the Gulf War up in Kiryat Shmona as well. So I'm a byproduct of that as well. I know what it's like to grow up under tremendous threat for your life, knowing friends that have been killed by rockets and so on. And so that was very troubling. And I thought, wow, that's not cool. That's not normal, and it shouldn't be. And we shouldn't accept this. And so things just kept heating up and getting worse, and kept doing all kinds of different provocations that led to a war and another war and another war. And then the final peak of this was what happened on October 7th, 2023. Was it 6 months ago nearly, where the terrorists crossed in by mass and did what they did. So, and like I said, there was a time before the pullout from Gaza where there were Gazans that we could have peaceful relations with, and we're level-headed people, normal people like any place else. What I saw this time around is every home that I entered, literally every home that we entered, had terrorist paraphernalia, flags, Hamas flags, T-shirts, mugs. You know what? Show and tell here.
Yeah, show and tell. Let's see.
I don't have the whole all the other stuff right now. I have it in my bag actually somewhere, but I do happen to have this mug. So if you can see there, right?
Yeah, I see it.
You see the
emblem.
Emblem, and then you have their rocket battalion here, right? Isn't that sweet?
Just what you need for a good cup of morning Joe. Jeez.
A whole batch of these in a normal home. In America, print out Christmas mugs or Thanksgiving, or something with a picture of your family. This is the kind of stuff they print out. So what I'm saying is, it's an act of brainwashing of the population, of letting them, this is normal. When you have pictures of terrorists, okay, with masked men and rockets behind them, that's propaganda. Okay, that's terrorist propaganda. They're brainwashing a whole population to think this is normal, and loving your family, building a home, going to work, and having what we know is normal.
Yeah.
And so that's a sad reality. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Board games.
So
Board games.
when you go into, I mean, your rules of engagement are essentially, as I understand them, that if a home or building is a threat to you in any way, like it's booby trapped or there's people in that building shooting at you, then that building is fair game and you're going to flatten it. If it is if it's militarized, meaning it has rocket launchers in it, it has weapons stored in it, it has a tunnel entrance in it, something like that, then it's also a military target. It becomes fair game, and you're going to flatten that home. The problem, it seems like I'm seeing from the footage that's coming out of there, is that virtually everything has been militarized in Gaza. I mean, there's almost nothing that isn't a legitimate military target at this point, which means that following those rules of engagement, you're going to have a parking lot when this thing is done. What do you have to say about that?
So that's exactly it. I mean, so our rules of engagement need to change and have been changing because we've had to recognize that we can't just destroy everything. Although a lot is being destroyed because of that very reality. Because imagine, okay, so for example, we're staying in a home in Khan Yunis, okay, my unit. We're staying in a home, holding up shelter there, whatever, right? And this is a home that's been bombed already. So the home is destroyed, and I'll give you an example, right, of a normal life for these people. So I step out of the home to go to my vehicle and conduct my missions, whatever. As I step out of the home, I look to my right, and within like 2 feet, there's a terror tunnel opening, right, a shaft into a terror tunnel. If I walk another 50 meters in the same neighborhood, this is a neighborhood, normal neighborhood. Another.
So you're essentially seeing it's all militarized. I mean, the whole thing.
Militarized. So you're right. It's militarized. Every structure is militarized. United Nations at the time, I don't know if that we have a updated number, but it was 1,200 workers that we publicized and said, look, these guys are known terrorists, and they're working for the United Nations and getting a salary from the United Nations. So the United Nations is supporting the terrorist network. Vehicles used by United Nations, vehicles used by the Islamic crescent moon,
Red Crescent,
which is the equivalent, equivalent to the Red Cross ambulance.
Right.
Those are being used for terrorists. Everything, playgrounds, okay, children's schools and whatever. They're book bags full of grenades, book bags, okay, with like
unbelievable.
And it's like, for us, okay, we're as soldiers and warriors, we're looking for an enemy that we can eliminate. And when we keep seeing this kind of stuff, it messes with your head because you're like, I don't understand, like where, because you're used to, where we're trained is. But a combatant, and that's our rules of engagement.
Right. Shooting each other. You're right. So, a question: have you run across women and children being used from a military in a military way, either as human shields with guys firing at you from behind them, or they themselves carrying weapons, explosives, supplies, whatever? Have you seen anything like that from what would normally be looked at as non-combatants, innocent civilians, women and children?
So I haven't personally seen it myself, but I know that that's taking place. I know that's taking place. That's part of their tactics of the enemy, and everything's fair game for them. So unfortunately, absolutely. I mean, they will use anyone, anything, little children. I know. Okay, so I do know of a personal story. Not that I was witnessing in that conflict, in that gun battle, but I do know where other men that I've spoken to who had engaged with a young boy with an AK, right? I remember exactly the age, but I mean, it was like under 15, something like that. I mean, super young little kid. So yeah, you definitely have it, because remember, I'm being raised with this, right? So everything in my mind is been programmed in such that when you see the IDF, when you see Israelis, when you see Jews, they're pigs, they're not human, and that we need to kill them. That's
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
or your neighbor or whoever, and eliminates that terrorist. What's going to keep you and prevent you from picking up that weapon and continuing the fight, right?
Right.
Um, and that's the unfortunate reality, is that these kids that are being, they're being used, and the terrorists know that when the IDF engages with someone like that, it makes us look terribly bad, terribly bad. Which,
Mm-hmm.
like I said, we are we are not wanting to shoot any children by any means. I don't want to shoot any women, and I don't want to shoot any men who are innocent. I had the opportunity of saving a Palestinian life back in 2004, doing an operation where one of my best friends was killed, who was blown to bits in Gaza, and I had my finger on the trigger, and being a sharpshooter, I had my scope right on the guy's face. And when I saw that he was a non-threat, because it was, again, one of those, in the fog of war, what happens, right? There was miscommunication. We weren't given the information that this guy was basically an electrician who was fixing the grid right where we were operating, and was given a green light to do so. But we were shoot to kill anyone who crosses a certain perimeter to where we were positioned with our soldiers. And everybody in the building was opening fire, trying to get them to stop and give warning shots. And by miracle, I was able to push the guys out the window and say, "Hey, sharpshooter, I got this." And I made a call that technically I could have gotten court-martialed for, because I broke the rules of engagement. He crossed in the what we call the red zone, which is shoot to kill, and I made a decision that he's a non-threat. And then within seconds after that, the officer comes in and says, "Whoa, whoa, whoa! Stop firing! Stop firing!" And he
Right.
informed us, and I almost killed that guy. Like, you almost made me
Yeah.
kill an innocent guy. So
Yeah.
that's war. It happens. Innocent people get
Mm-hmm.
killed. War is bloody. War is horrible. But at the end of the day, there's either winning or losing, and that's what it's about.
Mm-hmm.
We have to
Right.
win in order to stop this threat. And if innocent people get killed, we didn't make that decision. Hamas did. If innocent
That's right.
people get hurt, it's not because we are bloodthirsty. We are anything but bloodthirsty. It's Hamas's fault. So the world needs to put the blame on Hamas and understand that. They're the ones that did this. And
So Donna is
return our
asking,
hostages.
yeah, exactly. Just
And it's
return the
over.
hostages.
And
That's
it's
it.
over.
That's it. That's all you have to say. How do you deal with the terror, the fighting, the stress? I asked you last night if it takes you a
Yeah.
little bit to off gas once you get home. There's
Yeah.
people asking that. What's your answer to that question?
It's very difficult to get out of a. So imagine you're going to sleep in a place that's, like I said, surrounded by terror tunnels, and we are well aware of a terrorist that is able to come in any given moment. And if one of our guys doesn't do his job right on guard duty, then your throats are slit as you go to sleep. So imagine going to sleep. For people who don't haven't been in that kind of reality, imagine trying to go to sleep knowing that any moment your throat could be slit, you could be hit by an RPG on your building, which prayers for the soldiers that just got hit not too long ago here from the one of our special forces units in the Gaza Strip. Their building was hit and many wounded and so on. So I won't go into too much lengthy detail. I don't know how much has been leaked to the media yet, but I know personally that men have just been are fighting for their lives right now. And so that's your reality, is every boom, every sound of an explosion could be the last sound that you hear. And then getting back to normal life, where the barking dog or neighbors' kids are making too much noise, it just settles you for sure.
But
And
at
so you
least you're
have to.
sleeping on a memory foam mattress in a 5-star hotel, right? I mean, and you have air conditioning, right?
In Gaza,
No, what are
yes,
yeah, in
yes,
Gaza at least.
yes, totally.
Yeah, it's nice
Every
and
time,
soft and
every time,
yes.
every time. It's destroyed homes. Yeah, yeah.
Situation like what's your bathroom situation like, that sort of thing.
Okay, so we eat MREs, Israeli MREs. My men
That
are
stands for meals rejected by the enemy. Just so you know.
exactly, exactly. And so we've eaten MREs. We've eaten American MREs that some friends have brought to us. Um, so we're living on either one of those two, depending on the scenario. You're not sleeping much. We're my unit in specific. We operate mostly in nighttime. So
Mhm.
all our operations are at night. So your whole night day is flipped over. You get a few hours of sleep because you're also pulling guard duty when you get back from the mission. And so we're having to share the guard duty because we have to, like I said, protect ourselves from being killed in our sleep. You're not
Mhm.
sleeping in an area that is friendly. You're sleeping literally in the backyard of the enemy, and the enemy can pop up anywhere. You relieve yourself into special bags, okay, that you can that we have a designated area where you toss those to when you're done doing your business. But we also have number twos that you do, or sorry, number one that you're doing in very interesting conditions. I don't want to give too much details on that because that could be used actually from the enemy on that. But point is, it's not. Let's just put it like this: you're not using a restroom because the restrooms don't have water. There's no electricity in the facility where you're at.
Mhm.
Um, and again, we're
But
we're
you're
pampered.
not sleeping on a mattress. You're not.
No,
This
no,
is not camping. You're not
no,
in a tent. You're
no.
you're
Yeah,
laying down on a concrete floor someplace and trying to catch a couple
someplace.
hours if you're lucky.
Yeah, if you're lucky.
And
Yeah,
yeah, right. So it's extremely uncomfortable and
yeah,
not good rest, obviously, because of the stress of
yeah.
where you are. And so when you come home, uh, do you have to have an agreement with your wife, like, hey, I might be a little weird for a couple days. Just bear with me here. You know.
Yeah. So basically, exactly. In my case, I wasn't one of the extreme guys that started sleeping on the floor when he came home or tossing trash out his window.
Mhm.
Um, but one of the guys was talking about that. He just finished a cup of drinking his coffee in a one-time uh, tossable
Paper cup.
deal. Yeah, and then as your norm is you toss it into the trash pile that's outside the facility, and he goes to toss it, and his wife's like, "What the heck are you doing?" It's like, oh, forgot I'm not in Gaza. So
Yeah,
yeah, you
right.
have to break some bad habits, so to speak.
Mhm.
And again, I mean, I think the hardest thing is getting back to work routine because the things that people are stressing about here in the civilian world versus what we've been stressing in fighting for your life, it's just night and day difference, and
Mhm.
priorities, etc. So people have a hard time adjusting. I know I've had a hard time adjusting. Of course, we all do. Um, but I think I'll put it like this. I
Yeah.
think the more spiritual foundation you have as an individual, it's easier to have something to connect to help you de-stress. So it's prayer, nature. So I use nature to get myself kind of grounded,
Mhm.
getting into the
Me
nature,
too.
getting just letting the stresses kind of de-stress you in those areas like that, but then also keeping a very strong connectivity with the men that you've been fighting with, which is something important in my unit. We're a very tight-knit group, very, very
Right.
special group, and so we've already had 2 or 3 gatherings since we've been out with our
Have you?
families and everything. Yeah,
Okay.
so
Okay. So
and that
that's that
helps.
esprit de corps. There's a verse in Second Timothy. chapter 1, verse 7, that says, God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power and love and a sound mind. And I actually wrote a whole book about this. It's called The More Elite Soldier. And in that book, I talk about how that is kind of the formula that the military uses to help you deal with the stress of combat. So those three things: power, love, and a sound mind. Knowledge is power. The more you know about the enemy and about your own capabilities and about, just technical and tactical proficiency, the less afraid you will be when you go into combat, because you know what's happening, you know what's supposed to happen. You can listen, you can watch, and you can read the environment, and so you know when things are really bad and when they're not. That's that knowledge is power. The more that you carry in your head, the less that you carry on your back. And the second one is love, and that's what you were just talking about.
Yeah.
That the thing that keeps you in combat is not, well, I'm here for the glory of Israel. Or no, it's the guy on my left and the guy on my right. I'm there because there's no way I would leave my brothers when we're in danger. And when the bullets are flying, I mean, I might think about the glory of Israel later or before, but when the chips are down, I'm thinking about trying to save my brothers, and that's it. So it's that
Exactly.
esprit de corps that is so important, and it is very important to maintain that esprit de corps after you come out of the combat zone, and like you say, get together with those guys, get your families together, and further develop those relationships off the battlefield. The third thing is that sense of self-discipline. So the power and love and a sound mind, or self-discipline. And of course, the more disciplined you are uh, in the little things, the easier it will be to discipline yourself in the big things. The more that you train yourself before you go to combat, the better you will react when you get into combat, because you don't have time to think in combat. You act according to your training. Have you found that to be true in your experience?
100%. 100%. In
Mm-hmm.
fact, I've served in reserve duty since 2006, and I've been with this group of men in one of the most elite units in the military.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why we're elite is not necessarily because we're the tip of the spear in the war fighting, but because that we are a tightly knit group of men. Every person who's in the unit is handpicked. Every one of us is a friend of a friend. And to get into the unit, you have to go through, the screening of the men that are there. So there's a lot of good operators out there. There are a lot of very proficient, came from very cool units, tier 1 and all that. But to be in our unit, you have to have the same mindset. You have
Part of that brotherhood. Yeah, that's amazing. So if
war
you
is the first time that I've been in the worst combat, but with the best group of men. And for me, that's been the game changer in the differences
right,
between the former wars that I've been in, for sure, 100%.
absolutely, and then you're like, send me back. So you will most likely be going back into Gaza at some point.
Yeah.
So how can people pray for Doron and your family? How can people pray for you as you prepare to go back into the hot zone?
I would say pray that all of our guys get healed from our injuries that we've incurred during the last round that we've been in for 4.5 months
Mm-hmm.
of just very tough conditions. So pray for healing. Pray for helping many of us to overcome grief. Many of us have lost loved ones during this war, good friends. One of my best friends in the unit, his brother had fallen. He was a captain in one of the elite units fighting in Gaza. His whole family, of course, has been grieving. That was a very heavy blow, as you can imagine, for one of the brothers to fall in combat during this wartime. So we're all struggling with different things. Many of us are family dynamics, of course, like to pray for the family dynamics to accommodate for those of us that want to come back and do another round, because all of us are volunteers and none of us that I know of have to serve. And so, of course, that makes it very stringent on our whoever our spouses are. If the spouse is supportive of that or not. You know, can she basically handle holding back the
Hmm.
home front when you go back to war again, and just that whole stress and drama building up again, of course, because you can imagine our wives, every time that we go and operate, there's zero assurance that we're coming back. Okay, there is no
Right.
assurance, and when we do, it's a blessing that we know that we're
Right.
able to return to our families. So yeah, just those are some good prayer points, I would say, for sure. And then pray for the men that are in there right now, the men and women that are doing an incredible job to try to eliminate the threat of Hamas and to return our
Hmm.
hostages.
All right. Well, let me pray right now. We try to pray on this podcast at the end anyway. So let me pray for your guys right now. Lord God, I just come to you right now. We come to you. There's 1,000 people right now that are just coming together and beseeching you, just begging you to send your angels to protect the men from the IDF who are in Gaza right now. Lord, I pray that you would bring a swift end to this conflict, and at the same time, you would protect the minds of the men who are fighting so that they won't be permanently scarred by the traumas and the stresses and the heartaches that they're facing in there. I pray that you would give them a strong sense of love for their fellow man on their left and right. I pray that you would give them discipline, that you would also give them knowledge and discernment as they go about their missions. Father, I pray specifically for Doron and his family, Lord, that you would just strengthen his family ties, the extended family that's there coming around him right now. I pray that you would bless his wife and his children. And I pray, Lord, that you would just, like I say, end this thing soon and let everybody go home and bring peace in Jerusalem, Father. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. So, Doron, thank you very much for coming on with us. Tell me how people can. I know you're starting your own podcast, so I would like for you to tell people where they can find you when you start doing your podcast, and get where they can find you and follow you.
So the easiest way I would say is go to you just Google my name on Facebook or Instagram, and we will put all the links to the new podcast that I will be basically using as a platform to combat a
Mhm.
lot of the lies against Israel. We discussed about that as well during our Shabbat dinner, and how there's been so many false accusations, and sadly also from the warrior community or the special forces community that have served in foreign lands, and they know the tactics of the enemy, they know the lies, and you should expect more of them. But it seems that all kinds of people are getting sucked into the propaganda, the anti-Israel propaganda, and
Mhm.
so that's part of what motivated me to just start a podcast and do something more consistent and to just get that information out. And so we're very excited
Okay.
to get that going and get people informed.
And what is your podcast or your YouTube channel that they can go follow?
The YouTube channel is Temple Mount Report. The Temple Mount Report YouTube is the name of the YouTube channel, and then there'll
Okay.
be the Doron Keidar podcast connected to that channel. And
Temple
again,
Mount Report.
yep.
Okay. Well, folks, I highly recommend that you go and subscribe over on Doron's new podcast that'll start coming out here very shortly. And you're going to be able to get, I mean, look, Doron is one of my first sources where I go for hearing it from the horse's mouth, so to speak. And when I bring you information, sometimes that information is coming right from Doron. So you can get it at the same time I do by going to his podcast and taking subscribing and listening to his podcast as well. So I highly recommend you do that. So Doron, thank you very much for coming on with us. It's always a pleasure, brother. And I really, again, thanks for having us over for dinner last night. We really enjoyed that as well. You have a beautiful, beautiful family, and you got a lot to fight for, brother.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
You certainly do. All right. Well, folks, that's all we got for tonight. Please, you can go over to the Hot Zone with Chuck Holton. That's my YouTube channel. and you can subscribe over there, or you can go to chuckholton.com and you can, well, just follow that, follow, subscribe, whatever, over there to get my books, my documentaries, all the other stuff that I do. We kind of consolidate it all over on chuckholton.com. So thank you very much for doing that. We also would be remiss if we didn't tell you that CBN runs on your donations. So if you want to help keep us bringing you this kind of content, then go over to cbn.com and you can donate over there. And that, well, we certainly appreciate it all the time. Yeah, do hit that like button, subscribe, and all that, et cetera, et cetera. We'll see you again next time. Thanks for watching. Take care, Doron.
Thank you, sir.